What's up, Fantasy Nation? All right, Fantasy Umpire back here, Danny Kitchen. We covered the AFC East in the last episode. Now we're going to jump ahead to the AFC North. This is a division that is very interesting to me from a fantasy perspective. I think the Ravens are probably my top team to target in terms of fantasy, but of course, you can't forget about the Bengals. They have arguably the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. Joe Mixon should have a better season. Joe Burrow is going to sling it. But I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to take off this year. That's a team that I'm targeting in all of my drafts. I think Lamar has another MVP level season. I think we see the same from Mark Andrews. I really like the other rookie tight end there, Isaiah Likely. And I think Rashad Bateman takes that next step. I also, while I would take note of J.K. Dobbins' injury and the way he's looked in camp, I think that he's also going to be a target for me, the way he's slipping down in drafts over these final few days here. Those guys are smash picks for me. If you can get Dobbins as your late RB2 or early RB3, I think you're in a good spot. So let's dive right in. I'm going to start with those Baltimore Ravens. Not a lot on the coaching front. It's still the same coaching staff. That's the one thing that I think is holding this offense back. I just think the play calling is so predictable, right? I think they need to mix things up a little bit. And if things don't go right this season, I think we're going to see a new coaching staff. Maybe Harbaugh stays, but they certainly need some fresh play calling with a talent like Lamar Jackson. I just think that they're kind of limiting his upside the way they're calling games, and he's still outproducing 20 to 25 of the other quarterbacks in the league in terms of fantasy production. So if he stays healthy this year, sky's the limit. I think that he could easily win MVP again this year. The two fantasy spotlights for me, though, Lamar aside, he's kind of a given. Rashad Bateman and J.K. Dobbins. So Rashad Bateman, a couple of quick facts on him. He beat man, zone, and press coverage at a top 25% rate all time as a rookie last year. He also was not healthy. He was dinged up. He had a groin, leg, knee, you name it. He was not healthy. He's back. He's healthy. He's playing on an offense with 45% of the targets up for grabs. Marquise Brown now out in Arizona. This is his offense. This is Bateman's offense. There's even some talk of Baltimore using two tight ends instead of going too wide and going Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely on the other side, Bateman out wide. I like the idea of that. Likely looks awesome out there. He does not look like a tight end. He looks more like a wide receiver in the preseason. Loved him in college, and I think that he's exactly the type of guy Lamar Jackson likes to zero in on. So like Bateman this year, I think he should be going right around where his ADP is. He does have top 10 upside, but I think Lamar's arm could limit him. There's been some rumors that Lamar's kind of changed his throwing motion and sped things up a little bit. He looks a little better in camp, but again, got to see it to believe it. I think he is a tight ends quarterback, and he's going to be constantly looking for Mark Andrews and Likely this year, and I think Bateman could be his red zone threat. But yeah, I think he's going right about where he should in ADP. But I have no problem with anyone jumping up and grabbing Bateman in the top 25, top 20 wide receivers even, because that is his upside. He's a couple more stats on Bateman. Mark Andrews called him out specifically in the offseason in a good way, saying that Bateman's that guy. He said, I think the quote was that the sky is the limit for Rashad this season. 38% of their targets are up for grabs inside of the 10-yard line. So again, that kind of, to me, that means that Bateman will be their red zone threat, or at least the main red zone threat in terms of wide receivers. Now it still is to be determined if they deploy a second tight end in the red zone instead and use Likely in that capacity instead of someone like Bateman. So we'll see. No coaching changes, like I said, that are really noteworthy there. Their week 1 opponent is the New York Jets. I think the Ravens smoke them. I don't even think this is a close game. The Jets have dealt with injuries already. Zach Wilson, if Zach Wilson plays, I think it's, first of all, a big mistake by New York, but I think the Ravens destroy them. I think he struggles quite a bit with that defense, Zach Wilson does. If Flacco starts, I think the Jets hang around a little bit in the first half before Baltimore opens it up in the second half. But yeah, to me, that's a smash pick. If you're in a survivor pool, take it right off of the Ravens. They're going to win that game. If you're drafting fantasy defenses, certainly target the Ravens for week 1, potentially even for the full season. That defense looks really, really scary on paper. But certainly week 1 against the Jets in New York. And then my other target is J.K. Dobbins, simply because of how far he's fallen. He had that knee injury last year, spent the entire season recovering, rehab. He's still not ready. He's close. He might be a couple weeks away. I don't think they're going to play him week 1. If they do, it'll be a very limited role. And so for me, he's only a target if he slips to the later rounds. I would take him over someone like David Montgomery, that's for sure. But I would not take Dobbins over someone like Chase Edmonds, Eli Mitchell. I'm still taking Dobbins after those guys because he may miss some time, and I think it might be a couple of weeks or a month or two before he's back to the way he was pre-injury. So that's another one to keep an eye on there. Definitely noteworthy. Cincinnati Bengals. This team just killed it last year. They were the team to beat from week 14 on. They really just started to pick it up. Jamar Chase was, as advertised, looks like the best prospect in decades, and to me, he's a slam dunk top 5, top 6 pick in redraft this year. And then on top of that, they improved their own line, right? Mixon, he finished 4th in total yards last year, and that was the number 25 rated offensive line by PFF. He created 51% of those yards on his own. So the Bengals bring in 3 new offensive linemen. This offense is going to click even more this year. T. Higgins, in my opinion, is a top 10 wide receiver, no question. Jamar Chase is a top 3, top 4 wide receiver, no question. And then they bring in Hayden Hurst, who's kind of an exciting late round flyer tight end. I just think this offense is really going to take off this year. And Joe Mixon is starting to go outside of the top 10, top 12 even in redraft. I saw him go like 18th in my home league the other day, and I think that's a steal. I think he's going to be a top 5, top 6 running back this year. It has crazy upside in that offense. So those are the guys I would target. Burrow was QB7 in fantasy last year while coming off a torn ACL. He's another year removed from that. I think we see an even better year from him. This is going to be his 3rd year in the league. Sometimes quarterbacks make that 3rd year leave the same way wide receivers do. He's got the number 1 most improved O-line. So throw into the best wide receiver trio, Boyd, Chase, Higgins, number 1 improved O-line. To me, those 2 things add up to a top 10, potentially even top 5 fantasy QB season. And he does have the upside to finish top 3. The rushing still isn't there, so I wouldn't take him over guys like Kyler, Jalen Hurts, Lamar, obviously. Even someone like Trey Lance, that is a tough call. If you want extreme upside, it's Trey Lance. If you want the safe bet, it's Burrow. They are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1. This is not the same Pittsburgh Steelers defense that we've seen over the past decade. Last year, they started to show some holes in that defense. They didn't really fill those holes in the offseason, so I think they're going to struggle. I think that they finish dead last in this division. I think the Browns will struggle early too until Deshaun comes back. But to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the bottom 3 or 4 teams in the NFL. And they are definitely going to struggle this year. That O-line does not look good. Anyway, we'll get to them later. I'm taking the Bengals. That's a smash pick for me, week 1 at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have not even named their quarterback yet, which is, it is what it is. To me, I think I would have given the job to the rookie the way he performed, but yeah, not yet. And then just jumping ahead to the Cleveland Browns. We don't need to spend too much time on them and the Steelers. I don't want too much exposure to those two offenses. Again, Cleveland Browns, they bring in Deshaun Watson. He gets suspended. He's going to miss 11, maybe 12 weeks. I believe it's 11 weeks now. Nick Chubb, he's interesting. Kareem Hunt at his ADP is interesting. Amari Cooper, I guess. But as long as Jacoby Brissett's under center, the ceiling for that offense is capped pretty low. Chubb's still one of the best running backs in the league. If you're in a PPR league, you've got to bring him down a few notches. If you're in a standard scoring league or half point, sure, you could argue Chubb in the second round, and I wouldn't have too much of a problem with it. But he's certainly not a player I'm targeting, and that's an offense that I'm staying away from this year. They are taking on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina week 1. Of course, the Panthers ended up trading for Baker Mayfield in the offseason. So now we have the revenge narrative, Baker playing against Cleveland in his new home, Carolina. I think that Browns defensive line tees off on Baker. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think they blow right through that O-line in Carolina, and I think I'm going to actually take the Browns to win that game. As loaded as Baker's offense looks with DJ Moore and CMC healthy, a couple other weapons on offense, I still think the Browns can slow the pace. They can get to the quarterback. They're going to want to take Baker's head off. Myles Garrett's coming for him. So defense. I'm going with the Browns in that one. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They are taking on Cincinnati, like I said, week 1. That's going to be a tough start for them. I think Cincinnati blows them out, and I think that's going to be the start of a long season for Pittsburgh. The only guy that's really worth talking about here, I shouldn't say only because there's a couple of interesting rookies and late round dart throws on this team, but Najee Harris, if you can get him, I saw him sliding outside of the first round the other day. That's a smash pick for me. That O-line's not good. Najee Harris probably isn't going to be the most efficient running back. The volume will be there as long as he's healthy. I prefer him with Kenny Pickett under center. But even with Trubisky, I think he's going to see quite a few touches, 300 plus at least. And so in that offense, someone's got to get the yards. Someone's going to get goal line touches. It's going to be Najee Harris. I don't want any part of Deontay Johnson. I think the talent is there for him. Bad situation. Claypool, I want nothing to do with him. George Pickens is the one guy that's interesting to me. He is now the odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year in Vegas, so they're usually spot on with that stuff. I'm gonna roll with the flow there and listen to the smarter guys in Vegas, and I'm gonna invest in Pickens later in drafts. I don't think you can start him right off the bat, but maybe by week 5, 6, 7, a couple injuries, maybe he overtakes Claypool on the outside. He looks like an absolute stud. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they just know how to draft wide receivers and develop them, and Pickens looks like another gem who's developing much quicker than most rookies. So that about does it for the AFC North. Again, I'm targeting the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals, and I really don't want any part of the Browns and the Steelers. So decent run game for them, for both teams, but I'm out. And then next up we have the AFC South, so it gets a little interesting there. A lot of fun things going on for the Texans. We got the Colts, we got the Titans, and then of course the Jags. So a lot of changes there with that coaching staff. That offense is going to look a lot different. No more Urban Meyer, so definitely brighter days ahead for Jacksonville in that offense.